Welcome, welcome, welcome. In text. Okay, good. So it's on. It's good. All right. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to a PDR live stream. And please like the live stream. Hope that the few of you who have been watching this so far are getting something out of it. I don't know if you're enjoying the updates of the House races. So today we're going to go ahead and do a little brief update on what's going on with the House races in the 2024 election. After that, I'm going to end the program, the live stream, with the controversy surrounding the Matt Gaetz Trump appointment to be the new Attorney General for the incoming administration. So we this is where we're at, and the background here. Not much has changed since the last time we had this live stream. We still have the Republicans at 218, and the Democrats currently holding 212 seats at the moment. That's the situation as of right now. And so you can get a clearer picture here of what is at stake, in at least in the picture in the house. This is what the current situation in the 118th Congress looks like at the moment. And so right here we have 213 Democrats currently in this current House, and 220 Republicans. Two of the seats have been vacated at the moment. So sometimes you have members of Congress who resign, or they get a new job, or they leave office, or they die. Um, so that's currently the situation right there. And what we're seeing here, the one race that did get called is a race in Maine, and the Democrat uh, won that seat by just over 2,000 votes there. So just to show you how very close this election was, at least in the congressional race and even in the presidential race, apparently the program Breaking Points came out with a figure, and I'll have to check to see if this is correct, but they said that Trump won the election by in the swing states by just over 200,000 votes. So it's a very close election. It could have gone either way. So don't buy what the media punditry is telling you. This was not a blowout election. And we see it here also in the House races. Currently, there are about four races that have not been called. And believe all of the networks, ABC, CBS, NBC, this is the NBC website, and the Associated Press, have it down to about four left. So we'll go to the far left. The race in Alaska, the the person ahead is the Republican, and the incumbent is the Democrat. So the incumbent is losing at the moment by 7,572 votes, apparently. So what's going to happen here is that according to state law, I did say in the previous live streams that it was incorrect, that there would be a runoff because they have to, the winner has to have 50% of the vote gained in order to win the seat. And the Republican at the moment, his lead has been slipping from 49.5% all the way down to 48.9%. Actually, now it was 48.9, now it's 48.6. There are two Democrats who ran in this race. The person in fourth place received 3,300 and some votes. So if you add both of those totals, it would bring the runner up to 153,000 and 86 votes, I believe. 153,086 votes, which would then put them about 4,000 votes or a little bit under 4,000 votes behind. But what's going to happen here apparently is that they're going to go to what they call the ranked choice voting, if I recall correctly in my reading. So they're not, I believe that they're not going to hold a special election or a runoff. From what I read, it's that they're going to do a ranked choice voting, and I don't know. To be honest, I don't know what that's going to look like. So we probably on this race, this might be the last race that's going to be called, probably next month or who knows. The other races as well, Iowa, the picture here, it just has not changed at all. You have the Republican leading at the moment by 801 votes. Um, very close. And what will most likely happen here is that there's probably going to be a recount because the difference is it's less than 1,000 votes. So they're probably going to do a recount to make sure that the tabulations were done correctly. The other race here is Ohio's ninth district. So this is good news for the Democrats because they have 95% of the votes counted at the moment. And Marcy C. Kaptur, I believe is her name, she is ahead by 1,014 votes. So if she maintains this lead, the Democrats are going to pick up another seat. It would bring their total to 213, the same total that they have at the moment right now. The last race, there are actually two that I want to take a look at. I don't know why they say that there's four races that have not been called when actually there's two races in California. The 13th district, the Republican is leading at the moment, but look at that lead. They have a 227 vote lead there at the moment, and with 97% of the votes tabulated. So we don't. Again, this is this we won't know. And even if we do get the networks calling it for one of the candidates, because it's less than 1,000 vote difference, and even less than 500 votes, it's very likely that either side, one of the losing side, is going to request a recount here. So this is going to create probably a lot of uncertainty as to the final numbers in the House. And the last race that I want to take a look at here is, and this is good news for the Democrats here. I believe it's the 45th district, and if I can find it here, that would be great. But I can't seem to locate it at the map on the map right now at the moment. That's the 46. Here we go. At the moment, so Michelle Steele, I believe that she's the incumbent, and the Democrats have a very good opportunity to flip this seat. So she had been leading as the votes have been tabulated the last week, but now the Democratic candidate at the moment has pulled ahead, and they're ahead at the moment by 214 votes. That's what it's looking like. Actually, 314 votes. Yeah, 314 would be the difference there. And with this is with 92% of the votes counted. And once again, my prediction is that there's going to be a recount. If the winner is called, the losing side is going to request a recount to make sure that they got all the votes counted. So that's it. If the Democrats, at the moment, the Democrats are ahead in two of these four races that have not been called. If they pick up two of those seats, it's going to bring their numbers up to 214, which would add to their current total of 213. So To conclude, it just in the House, there was no significant gain. Neither party really made any significant progress. And you're looking at these races that are the last ones that are being called, the difference, which is very close in both races. I would really like to see what's the final total of voters who voted for Democratic congressional candidates in the House, and the total number of votes for people who voted for the Republicans in the House across the country. It would be interesting to see those numbers. The picture in the presidential race for the popular vote, because we already know what happened in the electoral college, 312 to 226, but we don't know yet what's going to be the final number for the popular vote, because they're still counting votes in these districts that we had mentioned. The Trump's lead is in the popular vote has been actually diminishing little by little. It's actually now gone below 50%. So he doesn't even have the majority of the support from voters who came out to vote on November 5th. He at the moment he's has 76,770,514 votes, giving him a 49.9% total. He had on election night, I believe, he had like a 50.5 or 50.3% percentage in the popular vote. And Kamala Harris has increased her support to 48.3. She's over at 74 billion votes. And so she, instead of being, I know on election day, people were saying that, oh, she came 15 million votes under Biden's number. Well, that 15 million, because they're still tabulating the votes, is now shrunk to a 7 million vote difference. So at the moment, she has underperformed from Biden's 2020 results by 7 million, not 15 million and not 10 million, as I had thought it was probably going to be, but uh, it's actually now 7 million. And it's probably that difference is going to decrease because a lot of the counties that we looked at, it's favoring the Democrats in some of those counties. But I think that they're finishing up in those 4 or 5 districts. So she's not going to, I don't think she's going to catch up to him because there's not enough votes out there, it doesn't appear, for her to make up what is it, a 2.5 million vote difference. So she's probably going to be at the end of the day, she's probably going to be behind Trump by 2 million votes, which in the presidential race, it's not that big of a difference. So again, this was really not a big blowout. And if we look at the swing states, she lost Nevada by 46,000 votes there. She lost Arizona by 190 some thousand votes there. In Minnesota, it even came close because Trump was only behind here by 140,000 votes almost. In Wisconsin, Trump won, he barely won by 29,000 votes there. Michigan, again, it's a 80,000 vote difference right there. Pennsylvania, so far it's 120,000 vote difference. North Carolina, we're looking here at a 183,000 vote difference. And in Georgia, where Trump won, it's just a 115,000 vote difference. The race was just close, especially in the states in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. The difference was very slight. So this was not like a blowout election at all. Harris did underperform. Trump did increase his numbers from 2020. I think in 2020 he got somewhere like around 73 million. So somewhere around there. So he's overperformed by 3 million votes. But of course, in every election, you have more registered voters. What we're seeing here is that in this election, a lot of people on the Democratic side, or at least who voted Democrat in the last election, decided to stay home in this election. Over in the Senate, we still have the race in Pennsylvania, which was called by the Associated Press for the Republicans, but it has not been called by NBC. And they're still counting the mail in ballots, or I might have heard overseas ballot, but I think it was mail in ballots that are still being tabulated. And the lead that Republicans have in this race has been slightly decreasing. They only have a 16,372 vote lead at the moment. I believe there's litigation going on here, and I saw a video somewhere. I don't know if it's true or not, of the state Supreme Court telling them not to count, telling election officials not to count some of these mail-in ballots, and they're counting them anyway. So I don't know if there's going to be a recount here, or if there's going to be litigation when all of these votes are being tabulated. So that's a possibility. Okay, that's it. Basically, that's the update there. Again, it's not really that earth-shattering for the Democrats. What is earth-shattering, I guess, would be that they don't have control of any branch in Congress, even the Supreme Court, and their strategy has failed because they've lost the 2016 election. They were lucky in 2020 due to COVID, and they allowed the Trump to come back in 2024 but in spite of the lawsuits, the lawsuit in New York, which is still ongoing apparently, the lawsuit in Georgia where he tried to steal the election in the state of Georgia by trying to put in fake electors, the lawsuit with the author who's claimed that he raped her, or he sexually assaulted her. Not that he raped her, that he sexually assaulted her. Um, Carol is her last name. I forget her first name. So those, in spite of those lawsuits and the processes going forward, the case in Georgia was almost a shenanigans because there was a scandal that broke out with the district attorney involved in that case, who was really representing the Democrats there, and she had an inappropriate relationship with one of the people on her legal team, and that came out, and then this is really embarrassing. So that one didn't really move forward. In spite of all that, he was able to come back, and really, it's a remarkable comeback, really reminiscent of Richard Nixon in 1968, very similar. And this election really was very similar to the 1968 elections, that there was a lot of similarities. You had a Democratic vice presidential candidate who had to step in for the sitting president, because the sitting president, either in 1968 he quit, and in the case in 2024, of course, he did quit but was forced out. They were both elder statesmen in both cases. Lyndon Johnson and Joe Biden, they were both former senators, and both vice presidents were also former senators, Hubert Humphrey and Kamala Harris. But they really couldn't, when they were running, Humphrey really couldn't distance himself too much from LBJ's policy in the Vietnam War, and the same thing happened to Kamala Harris in with the situation in Gaza and Ukraine. So she couldn't really distance herself that much. And what's interesting here is that now I don't know if this is accurate, but I saw a video where RFK Jr. said that he was offered the VP slot, the vice presidential slot, by Trump, and he rejected it. He said no. This was months ago, and the reason he said no, he claims, is that he knows for a fact, he claims, that the vice president has absolutely no power. Now that is true. The Constitution gives no power to the vice president. The only power that they have is to break a tie-breaking vote in the Senate, 50, if the Senate votes on a bill or a resolution, and the final result is 50-50, vice president comes in under the Constitution, then they vote, they break the tie. That's it. That's the only power that they have. And the president can give some tasks to the vice president, but but also what RFK claimed is that the president can also take the vice president's staff away from him or her. That if the vice president does something that the president doesn't like, they can make the vice president pretty much disappear. They can take their influence, whatever status they have within the administration, they can basically make him disappear. So if that is true, it's just very difficult for these candidates to try to differentiate themselves. And that's what they both candidates needed to do in 1968 and in 2024. They needed to basically come out and say, no, if I'm elected, I'm going to be different. Then my presidency will not be anything like Lyndon Johnson, or my presidency is not going to be anything like Joe Biden. They couldn't say that. And even Kamala Harris went on The View and said the opposite, that no, there's not going to be much difference, basically. So that pretty much doomed that campaign, because voters saw, well, if nothing's going to change, then why am I voting for you, right? Remember, one of the main issues that voters were voting on, according to exit polling, was the economy and the cost of living. I know that the media saying inflation, but inflation is not high at the moment. It's really what people are referring to is the high price in gasoline, grocery store, or items that people buy on a regular basis that are becoming more expensive. Okay. So in 1968 case is very similar to this one. And in 68, you had third party candidates, the American Independent Party, a right wing party, running. And in that case, that person carried several of the deep South states. In the current 2024 election, you had third parties, the Green Party, and Robert Kennedy running an independent campaign. They didn't get much, they didn't carry any state, because the rules today are much more different than in 1968, where a third party candidate could run and maybe carry a state, because the electorate was different in 1968 than in 2024. Today, you have the parties who can basically litigate you, so that they can limit where you appear on the ballot. And then you're wasting all that money on litigation, on lawyers, and your campaign war chest is getting diminished because you're having to fight these lawsuits from both major parties. And in this case, the Democratic Party raised, according to a media report, $1.5 billion. It was a record. And on the Republican side, they raised over $300 million on the presidential race. So they had just vast amounts of resources, both major parties, to sue somebody to keep them from getting on the ballot in as many states as they could keep them from. So that's the only difference here. But we did see some significant push for third parties. And in the case of RFK Jr., who turned out to be, he started on the left, but he veered towards the right in this election season. He suspended his race and then threw his support to Trump. So even though he didn't carry a state, it just showed that he was gaining significant support. And he was polling at one point when he was running for the Democratic nomination. When Biden was still in the race, he was polling up in 12%, right around there, 12, 15% in the primary. After the primaries, when he decided to leave the Democratic primary, RFK was polling around above 5%. Okay. So the fear in within the Trump administration was that he was actually pulling more votes away from Trump than from Biden. But then what happened was when Biden quit, those RFK's numbers started dropping because the Democrats switched candidates, and now they had Kamala Harris running. I think the main concern for a lot of voters is that they in the polling, according to the polling, they really did not want a repeat of Biden Trump. So because they were saying no, we don't want these two, we don't want these two. That's why we were seeing a significant levels of support for third party and or independent candidates before Biden dropped out. Once Biden dropped out, the situation changed and his RFK's numbers started dropping. But Trump still felt the need to extend an olive branch to RFK, and now he's going to be the head apparently of the Department of Health and Human Services if he is confirmed by the Senate. Okay, that's basically it for the presidential race. And this is here an update here on the situation with one of Trump's cabinet picks, Matt Gaetz. And now, I'm not going to really go too much into detail on this because it's the live stream is just getting uh, longer than I had anticipated it. But apparently, Matt Gaetz was accused of prostitution by several women, and he had been under investigation for I think for 2 years now. And the House Ethics Committee was going to publish the report uh, soon, and then Trump won the election and nominated him to be the next attorney general. And once that happened, Gaetz, of course, resigned from Congress, stopping the report from in the House from coming out. And then that's where we're at. And there are people in the Senate, including Republicans, who don't like this man. There are people who in the House who are also Republicans who do not like this man. And several members of the Senate Republicans want this report, or they've been asking for this report to be released before they decide whether they're going to confirm him or not. So he still has to go through the confirmation process, and it looks like Trump is doubling down. He's not going to take back this nomination at all. And basically, in a nutshell, is there's two females who it's been reported, and the two females don't want to speak. One of them was 17 when they attended this house party. I believe this was in 2017. They apparently they were invited by someone in her circle, and the other woman as well was at this house party, and apparently they were told to bring what edibles, or basically the terminology that they were using is Matt Gaetz was just telling them to, hey, make sure you bring drugs. Okay, so they consumed the drugs, and then he had sex with these women. One of the women who brought, I think, the 17-year-old to the party saw him having sex with the 17-year-old. However, they claim that they believe that Matt Gaetz did not know that the young girl was 17, and that once he found out she was 17, he did not invite her to any of the future parties that they had. So that's where this stands. And the women, they testified before the House Ethics Committee. They don't want to testify in front of the Senate. I don't blame them. Their attitude is that, hey, you guys have the report in the House. You should just request a report from the House Ethics Committee. Why we don't want to come and testify? A lot of people on the Republican side are making a big deal that the Biden administration and the Department of Justice decided not to file charges against Matt Gaetz for sex trafficking, because apparently the young ladies lived in another, I forget what state they were from, but he brought them to his state in Florida. So there were potential like sex trafficking charges and prostitution charges and also having sex with a minor. They decided not to file charges. Now, I'm not surprised because my theory is, and I might be wrong, they probably felt that had they charged him, they were not confident that they were going to get a conviction or a guilty verdict. My opinion, my gut feeling, and this is I'm not an expert on legal matters, but uh, take this with a grain of salt. I think that they felt that the witnesses were not going to be very strong witnesses because the witnesses are basically saying, "Hey, he didn't rape me. He didn't force me to do it. And he told me to take drugs." Right. So I felt kind of pressured. I did feel that probably a little bit pressured to do this because I wanted the money. These young ladies basically wanted apparently for rent money. I think maybe for school or I don't know if they were students or anything, but the reason they went there was because he's paying them for sex, and they were desperate because they needed money. So that type of witness is not a very strong witness because then they're going to be, you know, and you see right now they don't even want to testify before the Senate committee. So if you had charged Matt Gaetz, if you're Merrick Garland, well, you have these two witnesses for your case who really don't want to help your case, right? And they're not saying that he's forcing them. And how is that going to look to a jury, right? Some probably some jurors might conclude because you never know what type of jurors you get in a jury trial. Some people might have the attitude that, hey, you know, he didn't force you to go there. Why did you go? You know, and you lied to him. Pretty much, you're saying that you practically you lied to him. He didn't. You're admitting he didn't know you were underage. Now, in many states, by the way, that does not excuse the adult from engaging in sexual activity with a minor. Um, so, but I don't know what the state law here in Florida was, but the federal charge I think is sex trafficking because he's providing transportation for them for the purposes of sex and also a transaction, money being transacted with sexual favors and so forth. I don't, my opinion here is that I don't think that this nomination will get through because a lot of Republicans, again, don't like this guy. And it just looks bad, you know, because he is, if he gets appointed and approved by the Senate, it's just going to put the Department of Justice under a very negative spotlight. And I honestly, I don't know why Democrats don't hit the Republicans harder right now because you had this entire election year where Republicans were using the trans issue that they're grooming kids and they're doing all this stuff and it's horrible. And I think that they should use this issue right now and say, hey, this is a party that said that they're protecting kids from people who are grooming them, but yet they want this guy who allegedly raped a 17-year-old girl, unbeknownst to him, right? But he raped a 17-year-old girl, then you want this guy to be your attorney general, right? And this is the guy who was showing pictures of the women he had sex with to members of the House in the House floor. This is the type of guy, everybody knows this guy's reputation. And this is the Republican Party who are bringing family values and morality to the White House by appointing this guy. Um, so I think that they're missing out on an opportunity right now, and that they could really use this issue to get more, at least to counterattack on the Republicans on that issue with the trans issue. Because you also have one member of the House, a Republican in South Carolina, who's trying to stop the first trans member of the House who was just elected, just in this past election. She's trying to prevent her from using the women's bathroom. Okay, so she's making a big deal out of that. I think the Democrats could use this issue to counterattack the Republicans there. So I think they're missing out on an opportunity that really the Trump and the Republicans are really handing them, honestly, because this is just very controversial. But I don't think he will be I mean, I'd be surprised. He might, I guess, but I don't believe that he will be approved from what I'm reading here. Stop sharing. And this is why. Let me just show you guys in 1 second here. Let's see. Let's go back. Good Lord. Oh, into full screen. Okay. So this is why here. If I can get back. So I'm gonna have to like probably exit. So the reason is that I believe that Matt Gaetz is really this purpose is really as a sacrificial lamb, because you have these other Trump appointments here that for Trump's cabinet that are also controversial, and we're going to go over some of the people who he's considering to the cabinet spot here. And here it is. So here are the people. So of course you got Susie Wiles for chief of staff. Some people are saying she's probably not going to last, given that some of these picks took her. She didn't know anything about it. Took her by surprise. You have the Attorney General Matt Gaetz. Now the Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Most people feel that he is probably going to get through because he's a senator of Florida, so he'll probably get through. Now, the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. So these are the picks that are very, very controversial. Elise Stefanik, Ambassador of the UN, a very pro-Israel, pro-Zionist. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., like I mentioned before, and Pete Hegseth, another very controversial pick. He's being tapped by Trump to be the next Secretary of Defense. So I think what the Gaetz' function is going to be is to have everybody focus their attacks on Gaetz. It's basically he's going to be. I think he's going to just take one for the team, and then he's just being put out there so that all the focus will be on him, and it will take a lot of the focus out of on these other candidates. So the RFK Jr. nomination, that one might not get through because there is a Republican, I think, in the Senate who said that he does not think that RFK Jr. should be the next Secretary of Health and Human Services. So I think that's what's going on here. So you don't really have to read too much into the whole Matt Gaetz story there. I think it's providing a window for Democrats really to counterattack Republicans, and I don't really see their messaging at the moment to be that effective here. They're just honestly, I don't even know what they're saying. It's I think they're just shocked from losing in this last election. So that's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for joining this live stream, and please like the live stream. And that's it for today. Thank you so much. Have a great day, guys.